Was Noah from the Bible an Atlantean?
Yes,
Who was it that gave him the instructions to build the ark?
extraterrestrials.
So interesting. Atlantean gene concentration. Is there a region, country, city that has a population that is mostly Atlantean genetics?
Aztec and Basque.
You shared with us that there was another civilization before Atlantis, and it had to do with Lemuria and Atlantis. And so can you tell us a little more about the the Lemurian civilization?
Yes, they were again more direct offshoots of the Anunnaki. Many of them had slightly tinted blue skin. They existed in, again, the Asian continent and are remembered to some degree by some of the ancient Indian so-called gods that have blue skin, which is a direct representation of some of the ancient Anunnaki, but also a representation to some degree of the later Lemurians, or Muans, as they called their area, Mu. Lemuria is a later appellation given by a more modern person. So the Muans, occupying the South Pacific area of land masses that have now submerged under the ocean, was a more natural civilization, more connected to nature, built some structures, but not as many as you would think, and built them in a more natural way. Had a stronger sense of telepathy, a stronger sense of communication with all things in nature, were truly people of the land. And it was a very lush environment in which they lived.
The story of Noah's Ark.
In a sense, it did happen, but it's not limited to the one story that's in the Bible, and there are some things that are a little bit different than what was related. But it basically talks about the flood. It talks about the time when an asteroid struck the Atlantic Ocean, wiped out Atlantis, and caused massive change and tsunamis in different places in North, South, Central America, in Europe, in Africa, in the Mediterranean. Many different people traveled on different kinds of boats and vehicles to save themselves and perpetuate some of their culture. That is the story of Noah's Ark. But if you actually examine many different cultures around your world, you'll find they all have similar stories, except for the South Sea Islanders who live in the Pacific who didn't experience that because the asteroid fell in the Atlantic. So there are different Noah's Ark stories by different names in various cultures in the North, Central, South Americas, in Europe, in Africa, the Mediterranean, and so on and so forth. They all represent a general reality, a general truth of a massive flood catastrophe from an asteroidal or cometary strike.
It's very interesting.
Yes, it is.
And these people that build the boats, who warned them? Who told them to build the boats?
Well, some of their own people may have, because again, remember that throughout your civilization, there have always been intuitives. There have always been mediums and channels and people who could converse with beings on other levels, and sometimes they might receive such information from extraterrestrial sources who might say, hey, there's a big rock on the way. You better get ready. So it can be many different sources for different cultures.